Hello, I'm Mandy Witchin, and I'd like to welcome you to Lucas Group's Recruiter Intel Spotlight. Today, I'm joined by Donita Ayotte, Executive Senior Partner with Lucas Group. Hi, Donita.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Great. Thank you very much for joining us. Today's discussion is going to be about silver linings and how employers can capitalize on today's talent market. And I love the idea of this topic because so much of the news that we've been reading and seeing and hearing has been grim and tough to deal with. So it's nice to focus on some good news, which is what you're going to be sharing with us today. But before we go into our discussion, I was wondering if you would just give us a little bit of background on how you became an executive recruiter and your role with Lucas Group and your area of specialization.
Absolutely. So thanks for having me, first and foremost. So I've been with Lucas Group for 5.5 years. I am an executive senior partner within our technology division. Primarily, I focus on mid to senior level staff positions all the way up to directors and C-suites in the southern region mostly. Prior to Lucas Group, I was with 2 national firms, but really cut my teeth in the technology space working for Microsoft. Started there in 2011 and then just fell into recruiting and fell in love with it. That's my background.
Great. Thanks for that introduction. And now that we know a little bit more about you, we'll go ahead and switch to our main focus of today's conversation. You know, we're all feeling the pandemic's impact, and it's created tremendous challenges for hiring managers in particular. What are some of the issues that you're seeing your clients dealing with right now, particularly when it comes to recruiting during the pandemic?
It's a great question, and something that I've been getting a lot from clients just asking me how things are going in the market. To be honest, I think it's the same issues as before COVID. I think COVID has definitely exacerbated some things, but prior to COVID, the unemployment rate in the technology space was 1.4%. Really demanding to find talent on the market. And now it is about 4.4% in the tech space, which may sound like a big jump, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not if you look at the big picture. Regardless of the national unemployment rate, the tech unemployment rate has been low for many years. And in this economy, that still means that talent is hard to find, and you're still having to go in and recruit talent out of organizations because they're not on the market. There are more people on the market, I would say, but the really good talent, the best talent is still employed. So I think that it's kind of the same issues as before. Yeah.
Well, even with that temporary bump in unemployment, you are dealing with a larger pool. So just instead of finding a needle in a single haystack, maybe you have 1,000 haystacks to comb through to find that A-level talent.
Correct.
Go ahead.
No, that's a great point. I think the main issue is just everybody's busy now. And so, yes, you do have more talent on the market, but sifting through hundreds of resumes to find maybe, the 2 to 3 people that you would find now versus the one that you would find before when the unemployment rate was low. That's still really demanding for hiring professionals and HR organizations.
Employers are facing a wide range of recruiting and hiring challenges right now, as you mentioned, but there are also silver linings to our current talent market. What are a few of the upsides of our new workplace normal?
Yeah, so it's interesting because tech teams historically for the last several years have been moving along this trend of working remotely already. Whether or not the organization had adopted that as a policy, tech teams were doing it kind of under the cover, I guess you could say. Hiring managers just worked out deals with their employees and they could work from home. Now, what was interesting about that is in order to not raise red flags, your employee would probably most likely have to be in the city that your company was, right? To get away with it, essentially. Whereas now, with a lot of organizational changes because of COVID and allowing people to work remotely and adopting these policies, it really opens up the door to these hiring managers to be able to hire outside of their respective cities. So, for example, let's say you most of my clients are here in the Houston area. And previously, they might be able to hire somebody from Austin and they would drive the hour and a half here and there. Well, now you have access to Dallas, you have access to San Antonio, you might have access to, East Texas, West Texas, and you can have those people every once in a while come in, but they're really not required to. And if your company has a business license in another state, you might even be able to hire outside of your state and just have those candidates work remotely.
That makes perfect sense. And having access to that wider talent pool can help you overcome some of those hiring and recruiting challenges.
Absolutely. One of the points that I made recently with a client of mine was, let's say you're hindered by budget and you're in a very high paying city like Austin, but your company is open to you hiring somebody from Oklahoma that is a cheaper cost of living area. You might be able to find somebody that meets what you're looking for at a lower cost.
So there's potentially the financial advantages there too, still having access to that top tier talent, but making it a little bit easier to go ahead and bring a person on full time without impacting your overhead quite as much.
Absolutely.
Now, with remote work becoming the norm, I know that you had just spoken about that a little bit. What qualities or soft skills should hiring managers be looking for in candidates? Because being in person in an office altogether is one thing, but when you're separated from your team and you're working independently, and particularly if you're a new hire, what should hiring managers be looking for in their candidates?
That's a great question. And going off of what I said earlier, with things kind of being the same as pre-COVID, this was a characteristic trait that I would get a lot pre-COVID, which was I don't want to have to babysit the person that I'm hiring. And with COVID, I think that's even more prevalent. You are really looking for candidates that have a strong background in working autonomously, with references to back it up, or testimonials from colleagues to back up that they are able to work from home or without a lot of supervision successfully. That was, like I said, a really sought after trait prior to this. And I think it's even more necessary now, for sure.
And then, I know you focus on professional and executive level roles and higher level IT professionals. What skills are essential for managers in IT and senior leaders within IT?
Yeah, same kind of concept, but just a little bit of a difference. So hiring managers need to make sure that they have previous experience working or running remote teams. And that could be, let's say you have experience running an offshore team that's not necessarily in the US, or you have people spread out throughout the US, right? That would be a strong character trait of a leader in our new normal. Granted, I would say that it's not just about managing and making sure that your people are doing their jobs. I think with this new normal, it's also important to make sure that you have previous experience, or at least the ability to talk to still developing and cultivating a very strong culture remotely, which is not easy. I think a lot of people are having challenges with that right now on keeping their teams motivated in this environment. So if you're coming to the table with really good ideas on how to make that happen, I think you're going to be a standout candidate.
Is there anything in terms of managers and leaders who are in charge of blended teams where they have a portion of the workforce working remotely and a portion in-house? Is there anything in terms of personality qualities or hard skills that these managers or leaders would need?
I wouldn't say that there's a huge difference. Just making sure that you are really connecting. If you do have a blended team, making sure that you're able to connect your remote staff with your staff that's in-house, so they're not feeling left out necessarily. So you want to make sure, like I just mentioned, having that strong culture, making sure that you're coming up with ways or ideas to keep everybody connected so that the people that are working from home aren't necessarily feeling left out.
I know that that's an advantage that an executive recruitment firm like Lucas Group can bring to the table, is helping provide that culture match and bringing in people who just by the nature of who they are, align with the values and the culture of the organization that's hiring them.
Absolutely. That is one of the main things that I think a lot of hiring managers don't necessarily think about going into making a hire. Everybody always says that they want a culture match. And the one thing that I hear most people say is, oh, we're laid back, we're just a laid back culture. But what does that really mean? What does that really mean to you? What does that mean to your organization? What does that mean to your team? Identifying those things and making sure that you're asking the right questions to your candidates to ensure that they align with those values that you're looking for is really important.
I have one more wrap-up question for you.
Yeah.
If you have an employer who needed to make a key IT hire in this talent market, what advice would you give them?
It's a great question. So, having a streamlined recruitment process in place and sticking to it is going to be really important. Meaning, whenever you do decide to go out to market looking for a candidate, as busy as you might be, everybody is right now. I think everybody's trying to figure out how to be more efficient in this environment. You want to make that candidate a priority, move them through the process in a timely manner. Candidates do get interview fatigue. And like I mentioned before, our unemployment rate in the tech space isn't necessarily low. So those candidates are going to be interviewing with multiple other employers, and you want to make the process seamless with them. Remember, at the end of the day, you're courting candidates. You got to make sure that you're keeping a pulse on the things that are going on with them and other opportunities that they're looking at. And you want to make sure that regardless of the questions that you're looking for in order to make sure that they're a company fit, you want to make sure that you're also making them comfortable and making them feel like they want to work for you. There's a delicate balance to the recruitment process. And most hiring managers know how frustrating it is to get a candidate in process. You think they're the perfect person, everything's going right. And then at the end, things just fall apart. There's definitely things that you can do to avoid kind of having those things happen at the end of the process that some hiring managers and HR professionals honestly just don't necessarily know how to do. They don't do it on a daily basis. So calling in a professional like us can really help to make that process seamless.
Absolutely. Streamlined, having that insight on what the market bears in terms of pay rate, helping to create that culture fit that all goes into a successful hire, no matter what sort of economic conditions or if we're in a pandemic. Those are tips that are going to work now and in the future too.
Right.
Thank you so much for this information and this insight, Donita. If you'd like to learn more about Lucas Group or get in touch with Donita, you'll find information at the end of this video. I'm Mandy Witchen, and on behalf of Lucas Group, thank you for watching.